Star Trek has a couple episodes that explore the idea of paradise, what makes a perfect world, and if a perfect world is attainable, is it something we should strive for? The title of this episode, The Side of Paradise, originally comes from a line in the poem Tiara Tahiti by Rupert Brooke, then was used as the title of F. Scott Fitzgerald's first novel, which is directly where Star Trek takes this title from. The phrase is commonly thought to mean that all our time on Earth is spent waiting to cross into heaven, or simply put, that we're ultimately waiting to get to a place where we're peaceful, prosperous, and eternally happy. That is the side of paradise that the Enterprise comes across in this episode, a place where all a person's basic physical and emotional needs are met. The specific needs that this paradise provides is food and shelter, great health, belonging, love, and complete peace. This episode was in response to the hippie counterculture of the 1960s, but the modern-day equivalent is good vibes only. But too much of anything, even happiness, is not a good thing. The episode's title can therefore mean the dark side of happiness. In this episode, the Enterprise studies a planet that theoretically should have no life on it, only to discover that a colony is not only alive and in perfect health, but that they've become a happy society with no greater aspirations beyond the needs of their small community. Side note, the Enterprise here is not interfering with a native culture. They're working with a colony who recently settled from Earth. They don't start interfering until they have orders from the Federation to evacuate the colony due to proven radiation dangers, Berthold rays, which are not fully understood, but can disintegrate living animal tissue.
On pure speculation, just an educated guess, I'd say that man is alive.
Captain, this planet is being bombarded by Berthold rays, as our reports indicated. At this intensity, we'll be safe for a week.
It further becomes their business to interfere when the Enterprise crew becomes blissfully affected by the paradise and starts to abandon their duties. As tempting, peaceful, and yes, even perfect the planet may seem, it's ultimately an artificial creation, as all of the happiness, bliss, and inner peace is the result of the spore of one of the planet's flowers. In addition, while everyone who's under the spore's influence is blissful, they lose their desire to continue learning about the world around them, making themselves complacent as a result and stagnating their personal growth and understanding of the world. As the ship's mantra is to boldly go where no man has gone before, this perpetual bliss and resulting complacency directly goes against everything the Enterprise and arguably what Star Trek stands for. The solution to breaking out of the spore's influence is a very unique one. What saves the day is violent emotion, specifically anger. Ultimately, why this episode is so brilliant is because it shows us that we need our negative emotions. They are part of the human experience too. We wouldn't know what happiness and peace really were if we didn't also understand pain and sadness. Anger is an emotion that's almost always cast in a bad light as a destructive emotion, and while it can be when it's unchecked, it's also an emotion that inspires motivation and change. It's an energetic emotion that, when controlled and used right, is very productive. It's one of several emotions important to our survival because it encourages change. It is painful to watch Kirk have to provoke Spock enough to get angry, for the characters and for the audience, but it was necessary for the mission to succeed. He does allow Spock to strike him in response without penalty, and takes the time to calm him down afterwards.
Did that to me deliberately.
Believe me, Mr. Spock. It was painful. In more ways than one.
Because they take the bad with the good, they have the tools to successfully overcome their difficult situation, which allows them to further their understanding of the problem and eventually solve it. On the flip side, happiness, while often seen as the ideal emotion, leads to complacency if unchallenged, which in turn leads to an unwillingness to change, which at most extreme cases leads to survival risk. Even though the colony may have been immediately protected from dangerous radiation, the Berthold rays were a recent discovery that wasn't fully understood. They put themselves at serious risk and had no real means of protecting themselves. The episode proves that being happy all the time is a false ideal that stagnates our understanding of the world around us. But it's not that black and white on the issue. And while it's very critical of that thinking, it doesn't actually demonize people who want things to be easy. The prime example is Spock, who had troubles belonging anywhere due to his conflicting Vulcan human heritage.
The spores. They're gone. I don't belong anymore.
But ultimately makes the tough choice to accept the real world with all its troubles, even if he finally got a taste of what happiness could be like. The tragic example is Layla, a settler on the colony who knew Spock years ago, fell in love with him back then, and now wants to bring him into this planet in order to be happy with her, thinking they now have a chance. However, in reality, she drugged and coerced him into this happiness, ultimately trying to change him into something to fit her fantasy.
I love you. I said that 6 years ago, and I can't seem to stop repeating myself. On Earth, you couldn't give anything of yourself. You couldn't even put your arms around me. We couldn't have anything together there. We couldn't have anything together anyplace else. But we're happy here. I can't lose you now, Mr. Spock. I can't.
While her actions are clearly wrong, she's still presented as a sympathetic character. Her pain over loss is relatable, and her want to be happy with someone she loves is a very human desire. Arguably, she didn't have the tools to cope with some of the harsh realities of life, which drove her into this need for eternal peace in the first place. This side of Paradise still comes to an interesting conclusion. This episode says that yes, we weren't fit for Paradise, but it really means we weren't fit for it the easy way. Paradise can be reached and happiness can be achieved. We were meant to achieve our own version of paradise in our perfectly imperfect world.
Well, that's the second time man's been thrown out of paradise.
No, Bones. This time we walked out on our own. Maybe we weren't meant for paradise. Maybe we were meant to fight our way through. Struggle, claw our way up, scratch for every inch of the way. Maybe we can't stroll to the music of the lute. We must march to the sound of drums.
And it's important to develop the tools to be able to survive in this world, as well as to keep going. To, as Star Trek says, boldly go where no man has gone before. The temptation to be happy all the time where life is easy and free from pain is exactly that, tempting. It doesn't make anyone dumb or a bad person for thinking so. Even if the actions some take to achieve an easy happiness are in the wrong, simply wanting to have an eternal inner peace is still shown as understandable and sympathetic. The last line of the episode, showing Spock's sadness at losing the happiness he felt for the first time in his life, acknowledges this.
I have little to say about it, Captain. Except that for the first time in my life, I was happy.
Everyone wishes their lives were easier and free from burden, even the smartest, most successful people. It's tempting and understandable to wish things were easy, but it's more rewarding and lasting to put in the work and achieve our own personal paradise while we're still here on Earth.